Here we are, NBA playoffs time. This year is looking exciting, super exciting. I mean, last year was kind of a weird one because we had, obviously, COVID cut the season short. Then they kind of came up with this. Well, they played it all in the bubble. They played it all at one stadium up at Disney World. All the teams went there. Super stressful, all the COVID stuff and not knowing if the games were on. No home court advantage. And they kind of created this, kind of what we have now with this playing tournament. So they had the other teams who didn't quite make the playoffs, all come to the bubble, playoff, and then the team who comes top of that gets into the playoffs. So I think this kind of playing tournament that we've got now has kind of been born out of that. It worked out well that time because you had teams who weren't close to making the playoffs get hot and start winning loads of games. I mean, the Portland Trailblazers last year did that. They got all the way. The Phoenix Suns, who are number 2 seed in the West this year, they had a good bubble last year. So I think as many there's a lot of pros and cons to the playing tournament. I mean, certainly a pro for me is you get more basketball. You get a wider chance for some of these teams who either not quite going to make that normal playoff system. So normally it's a top 8, like I said, top 8 qualify, 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5. Normally very simple. All the brackets are set, and then the winner just plays, the next guy along. It's not that complicated. And normally in the Eastern Conference, which is typically a weaker one, I'm not even sure why. It's probably the history of the teams that are in it. Normally there's a team or two that get in there with a really bad record. They lose way more games than they've won, and they kind of get in there and they're not really, that motivated, and they're just happy to be there. And then they normally play the number 1 seed. So obviously, if you're the 8th seed, you'll normally get in there and play the best team in the conference. They'll normally get swept and then off they go. So I think it's better to have, the pro of this playing tournament is that you get some teams who are kind of on the edge, the 7th seed, the 8th seed, make them earn it, get hotter, and then play the number 1 seed. So technically this could kind of work well for competition and well for some of these teams who are kind of on the end, on the outskirts. So the teams who finish between 7th and 10th who are in this playing tournament. I think it's a good thing. Obviously, the negative being there's 15 teams in a conference and 10 of them make the playoffs. It's like, what are we doing? Like, we might as well just sack the regular season off and just do a massive playoff tournament every summer. So I think it's good. Innovation in sports is good. I think it's good to kind of switch things up, and you want to kind of balance between like spectacle and sporting integrity. You want to have it, you don't want to have a tournament where the sporting standards are dropping. You don't want it to be like everyone could just get in and it doesn't really matter. You play 82 games in a season, ridiculous. Like I said, 15 games a month, just to lose 1 game and you're out. It's kind of, I guess it's just the playoff system. It's American sports, but yeah. So the playoffs start tonight. The play-in tournament starts tonight, so I think it's going to be the East first. Interesting storylines kind of throughout that I guess is kind of worth noting. The 7th and the 8th seed in the East is Boston and Washington. Boston were kind of a pre-season favourite of most people. They had a pretty good team to start with. They had a good year last year, but they didn't have a good season. Washington Wizards were terrible for most of the season. Now they went and got Russell Westbrook, who missed a triple-double, which is, incredibly difficult to do game after game, let alone season after season. He's now done it 5 seasons in a row. So he's averaged more than 10 points, rebounds, 10 assists every single game throughout the whole season, which just doesn't happen. It just absolutely does not happen. So he's now got the record for triple-doubles, now got the record. I think there's only been one guy who's done it in a whole season. Now he's done it 4 seasons. So he's kind of like galvanized his team, along with Bradley Beal, who was there at the beginning. So that was kind of his team. Bradley Beal was at the Wizards with John Wall, They're kind of like a dynamic duo. John Wall got traded to the Rockets. Now Bradley Beal was kind of left by himself. They went and got Russell Westbrook from the Rockets as like a swap. So now we've got the Wizards who, it's an interesting team. I mean, I would, in terms of that particular game, they could definitely get that, even though they've got a losing record in the season. But they can definitely get Boston. But obviously Boston are playing at home. It's a one-off game. There's no like series, no best of three. It's just one-off game. The winner of that game is the 7th seed, so they enter the playoffs, and they're going to go play Brooklyn Nets, who are, the all-star team, some Space Jams type stuff. Like they've just got three of the best players in the NBA, and they've literally stacked that team to win the championship. There's no like gradual progression. They've just gone, right, we want them and him and him. Let's go. So winner of this game plays Brooklyn. So it's kind of it's a thankless task really winning this game, because you're very likely to lose in the next round. But I mean, it is what it is. That's how it goes in the playoffs. If you're not a high seed, you're gonna get beat probably. You're gonna play someone really good next round. But so the other side, Charlotte Hornets, who have the favorite for Rookie of the Year, LaMelo Ball, who's one of three brothers who all play well. All three of them play at least signed to a team in the NBA. LiAngelo, I think is the middle one. He was signed, then he got cut, and then his oldest brother Lonzo Ball plays for the Pelicans. So yeah, the youngest of the brothers, LaMelo, Rookie of the Year, I think. It's either him or Anthony Edwards. So he's kind of, and the team's owned by Michael Jordan, Charlotte Hornets. So they've got an interesting storyline. They're playing the Pacers, who haven't really done anything too crazy this year. They're just kind of drifted along into the 9th seed. So these two teams have finished 10th and 9th in their division, in their conference. So, it's kind of like, this is kind of what the play-in tournament was made for, I guess. Give these two a chance, and then whoever wins this game out of Charlotte and the Pacers, whoever wins that game plays the loser of the game previously out of the Wizards and Boston Celtics. So, these guys have to do quite a lot, because, I mean, as they should, if they come 9th to 10th, these guys have to do quite a lot to get to the NBA playoffs. And then the winner of that plays the Sixers, the Philadelphia 76ers, who have been the best team in the East all year. Them and Brooklyn Nets, but they've been the most consistent team. So again, all these guys, this is kind of their playoffs, especially for the teams who come 9th and 10th. You get to play two playoff games. Well, you play two playoff games, and then you play a series against the very best team in the conference. So, good luck to them. Over in the West, which is typically it's always been the most exciting division, or the most exciting conference. So LeBron, like I said, LeBron is in that. The Lakers are in that. Defending champion Lakers. I mean, they came 7th, and they were tied with 6th and 5th in terms of records. So Dallas were 5th, Portland was 6th, and LA was 7th. But they all had the same record. Because of head-to-head, LA end up 7th. So technically, I mean, it's not like panic stations. I mean, they've come 7th, and in this play-in tournament, it probably sounds worse than it is. But realistically, they're, just behind the very best teams in the conference. So, and they've had LeBron missing for most of the season, well, a lot of the season, and Anthony Davis has missed a lot of the season. So they're playing Golden State Warriors, who obviously have won multiple championships in the last 6 seasons, but they've obviously lost their superstars. They've still got the superstar, Steph Curry, who's playing. He's playing at an MVP level. I mean, it'd be hard to take it off Nikola Jokic, who's on Denver. He's the overwhelming favourite for MVP, but Steph Curry is playing ridiculous at the minute. So I would not be surprised. I mean, that's kind of an even-ish game. I mean, the Golden State Warriors are one of the hottest teams in the NBA. Granted, they did come 8th, but they are one of the hottest teams in the NBA. Lakers obviously have got a very, very good team, and they're obviously a championship team. But that could go either way, 100%. It's not obviously be all and end all, because the loser of this game plays the winner of San Antonio and Memphis, who are pretty bad, to be fair. Like they're not, terms of great teams, they're not quite there. So LeBron and Steph Curry can still both get into the playoffs regardless of what happens in their game. So I don't think there's. I think if I was LeBron, I wouldn't be too concerned. I mean, you don't want to lose this game. Ideally, don't lose the game. But if you do, you're still going to go play another game at home against a very weak team. So not really too much of a panic. But if you can win this game and get some momentum, that'd be ideal. And then end up in the right side of the bracket, because obviously the winner of this game gets the 7th seed, which means you'll play the second best team. And then the loser of the game plays the very best team in the conference, which is Utah Jazz. So, I mean, it's weird because in the Western Conference, the teams don't seem as scary, even though they've got really good records. Like the best 2 records in the NBA are Utah Jazz and Phoenix Suns. But I feel like LeBron would definitely look at these games as winnable, no matter who they get into. I mean, yeah, we've got to get through Steph Curry and Golden State Warriors first, which I think is going to be very, very difficult. But massive exciting game. That's going to be on tomorrow night, like 2 a.m, 3 a.m. So looking forward to that. Overall, across the 2 conferences, obviously, like I've mentioned briefly, in the East, Philadelphia have been the runaway, not runaway leaders, but they've been leaders for most of the season. Brooklyn Nets have got a stacked team. James Harden, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, outstanding players. There's not a lot of defense going on. They leak a lot of points, but they score a lot of points. And then if it's in the playoffs, you've got James Harden and Kevin Durant on the same team. I mean, it's like, if you asked to pick the 5 best players, like 5 outright best players in the NBA, if you asked all the players, I think Kevin Durant will be number 1 or 2 with LeBron James. James Harden will probably be number 3. And then Kyrie Irving, you'll probably get in the top 5, top 10 as well. So like, one team's got all these players, and granted, LA have got two of those top 10 as well. But Brooklyn are a scary team. I don't think anyone really wants to play them. But so like I said, they're the top 2 teams in the East. Philadelphia and Brooklyn will play these two play-in winners. So they've got kind of an easier first round game. And the teams I haven't mentioned much, Milwaukee Bucks. So the last 2 years, the MVP was Giannis Antetokounmpo. Check that spelling, pronunciation. He's been the best player. He's been the MVP last 2 years. Massive dominant guy. They've been, I guess, quiet, if you can say that, because they haven't been leading the whole way. They haven't been as dominant as they were in the last couple of seasons. I mean, they threatened to break the win record. I think it was last season or the season before. So they're not as good, but they're still top team. They're the 3rd seed in the East. New York Knicks are it's kind of like a throwback to the 90s. New York Knicks are back, playing well. Got Julius Randle, who used to be on the Lakers. He's now upped his game to being a team leader. And they've also got Derrick Rose, former MVP. So the New York Knicks are a good team. I mean, there's levels. I think the Sixers, the Nets, and the Bucks will be the top tier in terms of the East. They're the top tier, and then the next tier below, I think, would be New York Knicks. Atlanta Hawks again are kind of thereabouts, and the Miami Heat, who got to the finals last year, are also in that kind of second tier of team. So the East is going to be exciting. Come the semi-finals, it's good. You're going to have some very exciting. I think you should have Philadelphia, New York Knicks, and then Bucks will play the Nets. And both of those series are going to be very, very good. I would expect it to be the Sixers and then the winner of the Bucks and the Nets. Who on paper I would say the Nets. So I think Eastern Conference Finals you're going to get Philadelphia and the Nets, which isn't. This is hardly breaking any news, but it seems to me that those 2 teams will come through the East. The West, it depends on how these teams come in, because I mean the Clippers, who were preseason favourites for a lot of teams, they've been quiet like the Bucks have. They're much heralded preseason. Then they went through droughts, and I think they were the original kind of super team attempt. So you had Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. It didn't quite work out for them. They got destroyed last year. They had a big meltdown against Dallas or Denver, one of those two. They had a big meltdown and they came out of the playoffs, and now this year they're kind of going again. It's kind of win or bust for them this time because, they've kind of stacked the deck against, they've tried to stack the deck against LeBron. So you've got those two, and then I think obviously the top two teams, Utah and Phoenix, have been have been top of the whole NBA for most of the season. Like they've had by far the best record. I think a lot of people weren't really too sure how they got there. They weren't kind of like utterly dominant, but they're winning a lot of games, and they're very, very good record. So they're clearly the form team going in. I think in terms of the West, it's hard to predict what's going to happen because a lot of these guys. I mean, you got obviously in the first round, Utah are going to play the worst qualifying team out of this play-in tournament. So if LeBron wins his game, he's not going to play Utah. So it's more than likely going to be Utah and the Warriors. I mean, that could be a game. I mean, the Warriors could come in from being the 8th seed, and then beat Utah. That could definitely happen. And then obviously on the other side, Phoenix would probably play the Lakers again. That could go either way. Obviously, number 2 seed Phoenix, great record, second best record in the NBA, versus LA to come through a play-in. That could go either way. Dallas Mavericks with Luka Doncic, young Euro star, against obviously the stacked Clippers. That's going to be a great series. They're going to want revenge for last year. And then Denver Nuggets, who have the heavy favourite for the MVP, Nikola Jokic. They're playing the Portland Trailblazers, so probably apart from the Warriors, Portland Trailblazers are probably the hottest team, which does tell you when because obviously I guess the benefit of this play-in tournament is if you're leading the NBA, you're just going to take your foot off the gas, or you want to try and get number 1 seed, but you're not like fighting for your life. If you're fighting to stay out of the play-in tournament or to get into the play-in tournament, you're obviously going to up your game. You're going to be super in a lot of form. And that's what's definitely happened to the Portland Trailblazers with Damian Lillard, who's stepping up again, outstanding season. And obviously, like I keep mentioning, Golden State Warriors. These guys are really flying. And going into any playoff system, whether it's NFL, NBA, MLB, if you go into the playoffs in form, I think that's much more important than having a big record. And because the regular season is fine. Listen, you go to Utah, you go to to San Francisco, you go to Dallas. November, December, you're just playing games all the time. You're kind of not really focusing on what's going on. When it gets to the playoffs, everyone's watching. Every single game matters. Every single game's televised. Every single game is do or die. And I think it just changes people's mentality a lot. And that's why a lot of these number 1 seeds who, like Utah and Phoenix, I mean, we're going to see how good they are now when little best of 7 series against some good teams. So the West is looking fun, as it always is. The East is looking obviously less competitive, but there's some interesting storylines throughout. Like New York being back after the first time in ages. Can Milwaukee get through? Whereas they've kind of failed the last 2 years with the MVP. They've kind of underperformed, I think a lot of people would say. Are the superstar Nets going to come together and win playoff games and win series and win the championship? And then can Joel Embiid and the Sixers finally get it done? Can the process be realised? So super interesting storylines throughout. I'm pretty excited for certainly some of the West games and to see how some of these teams look over 7-game series, because like I mentioned before in one of my other videos about getting to see everything rather than just like, right, play one game, whoever wins this whole thing. I don't, obviously, cup finals and finals of things, you have to do that, but I like there being a more thorough examination of teams and athletes and performers. Like I just don't like the idea of everything coming down to one playoff game and then that's it. Like you've got no choice. Like I said, cup finals are different and tournaments, the way they're structured is fine. But when you talk about championships, like league championships, I do like the league playoff system. I do like, best of 7. Let's see you guys play 7 times, or it depends how many it takes to get it done. But you guys play 7 times, and whoever wins the most games out of those 7 advances. Rather than like, right, you two play once. You played 82 games, but you guys play tonight at their home court, and whoever wins the championship. Like, all those kind of things are kind of strange. That's why I do like about American sports. Certainly the NBA, you get to play best of 7. I guess because you can. MLB, you can play obviously best of 7. The NFL, you can't. You just play one game, so that's kind of different. But yeah, very much looking forward to it. Amongst everything else that's going on. So yeah, hopefully this made a bit of sense, broke it down a little bit, got you a bit excited for some of these games. And yeah, I'll just obviously check in now and again. On my weekly chats, I'll check in and let everyone know how it's going. Let everyone know how LeBron's doing. But yeah, appreciate all the love. I'll see you next week.